Are we on? Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. Man, that's awful bright. I feel like I'm preaching or something. Hey, Lord. We really appreciate you being here tonight. We have what we think is the most important message you could hear, other than what you might hear at church. And I think it's important that we recognize the youngest person in the room, because this message is what you're going to hear about today resonates from the youngest person in the room to the oldest. But where's Frederick at? Frederick, you got a Lakers shirt on. Where are you at? Come on down, Frederick. Don't take all night. We only got 10 minutes. So how old are you, Frederick? 16. Anybody younger than Frederick? Oh, look at these guys. All right, you guys come up too. We're just down here. All right, here's a challenge for when I challenge you never, ever, ever take drugs. You too. So we got a, like I said, we got an important message. We have, I got to thank a few people before we even start. And I mean, anybody that lives in this city knows you have the greatest city council. You have the greatest police department in North Georgia. And Chief D. Simone and his staff, thank you. We have a special guest tonight, a very busy man that makes his way all over North Georgia. He's the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. And Mr. Buchanan, I asked if he'd come in and just talk a little bit about what his office is doing as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer in North Georgia. So Ryan, Mr. Buchanan's been with the U.S. Attorney's Office since 2010. He's worked terrorism, civil rights, drugs. He's worked everything. And I'm not going to read through his bio because he's just a great guy, and that's what I want to say. But Mr. Buchanan, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Ryan Buchanan. I have the distinct pleasure and honor of being your U.S. Attorney. The question sort of instantly pops up, and what does that mean? It means that every day I get to go to work with about 250 of my closest friends, a few of whom are here today, and work to keep the people of this district safe. We operate in 46 counties across the northern part of Georgia, and we look after about 7.5 million or so people, including each of you. So it's really an honor to serve you and to keep you safe. In terms of what we do every day, we work primarily to understand what poses the greatest threat to the citizens of our district. And it's clear to us that fentanyl plays a huge role in threatening our safety. Just last year, more Americans died from drug overdoses and drug poisonings than any other year in the history of the United States. The next year to that was 2022. And so we're on an awful trajectory. The historic sort of approach to drugs, if you'll recall the old commercials with the frying pan and the fried egg, it's this is your brain on drugs. We worried about addiction, and we still worry about addiction. But what has changed now is the lethality of these drugs. People take these drugs, sometimes aware, sometimes unaware, and people are dying at an alarming rate. And so with my partners here, and I'll ask them to stand because they don't want to stand, but I get to ask them to stand. Here today with me, Thomas Forsyth, who's our opioid coordinator, Mike Herskowitz, who's our drug chief, and Laurel Malam, who is our deputy chief in drugs. They've been in this fight for a long time, along with Dan, our law enforcement partners at DEA, and our local partners, to do what we can to make certain that our citizens are safe. And that entails going after cartels in other countries. That entails going after foreign companies that make precursors. And that entails going after the drug dealers who put these drugs in the hands of our citizens. And so we know that the tactics have changed. Drugs are sold online. People target our young folks specifically through the jargon and social media. And so we must adapt our approach as well. And part of that approach includes events like tonight where we aim to raise awareness. And we want everyone to leave this building here tonight with your eyes wide open about what threatens us. And we want everyone to leave this building tonight with an idea of who you can call to address these issues. And so I applaud you for taking that step, taking that leap, this night and this chance to learn more. I believe you'll hear both from a law enforcement perspective and a personal perspective of the impacts that fentanyl and other drugs can have. Thank you so much for your time. Please call on us for a resource and enjoy your evening.
So my name's Dan Salter. I'm with the Atlanta Carolinas HIDA. And with me tonight is our Deputy Director, Andy Diamond's in the house, and Armando Roche, and you'll have an opportunity to meet them afterwards because I'm sure there'll be questions. Listen, this takes all hands on deck. We have to start, you hear about it takes a village, it does take a village because we are facing the biggest monster that we've ever faced in drug law enforcement. 112,000 people died in 2023 from a drug overdose. The majority of those with fentanyl or xylazine, what we're going to talk about tonight, isn't it? And I'm West Texas boy, but that's 300 Americans a day dying. That's not acceptable. It's not. And so for you young people in the room, pay attention, sit up, listen. For you the parents that are in the room, get to know your kids and what's going on, talk to them, be aware of some of these things. And we've got a really special guest here to close us out tonight, and I think you're really going to enjoy her presentation because it's real. So right now, everybody, well, most everybody, we might have some Georgia Tech people in the house, but anybody know how many people this stadium holds? I've heard between 80 and 90. I mean, Georgians kind of like Texans, you exaggerate a little bit. We know how many fit in the Longhorn Stadium, don't we? Anyway, look at that stadium and realize that more than that are going to died last year of a drug overdose. If you've been to a game, they're very exciting, aren't they? But that kind of brings things to reality, what we're facing. This is for 2022, 109,000, but the new statistics are out. It's going to be about 112 plus thousand. And why are we here tonight? Because that's 112,000 lives that were lost, most of which from an accidental overdose from a poisoning. The overdose fatalities in Georgia, as you see, this slide gives us a real snapshot. What happened about the time you see the spike? COVID, right? Why is that? I mean, people had more access to the internet. We don't have a whole lot of time to talk, but social media is not your friend as a parent. We're seeing all kinds of risque behavior on social apps, and if I told you that your loved one could order a lethal dose of fentanyl and it'd be delivered to your mailbox in the time that we're sitting in this auditorium, it's true. I was on a committee called the Cooper-Davis Act. Was on a committee sometime back with some congressional folks talking about we're not getting any cooperation from social media, Snapchat, Facebook, these entities, they don't want to cooperate with law enforcement. But you can go on those entities, if you can, ask your kids how you get on Snapchat and order up, and they'll show you. It's that easy. This is our area. The star there is Cobb County, where I live, but the dark area is Fulton County. You can see 255, the most recently in 2022 stats. Now, what has changed? So, as I mentioned, I've been doing this, I was thinking the other night, like 38 years in drug law enforcement. I don't know anything. I really don't know anything, but I do know drugs, and I do know drug investigations. And we've seen a change in what used to be casual use, and now these casual users are adults, and they're experimenting, or they're going back to using stuff maybe they used in college, and it's laced with fentanyl, it's killing them. Case in point, I don't know if the autopsy's out yet on the Kansas City Chiefs, the guys that were with the party. I'm pretty sure that those drugs, whatever they did, were laced with fentanyl. And fentanyl has been a game changer. We don't understand why the cartels are cutting every type of drug you can imagine with fentanyl. We do know, this is relatively new, that people are developing tolerances to fentanyl. And we'll talk about that when we get to xylazine. So fentanyl fentanyl has been used for pain management for a long time, and it's very good. But the fentanyl we're talking about are not the patches that some people have that are experiencing severe pain. We're talking about the fentanyl coming from Mexico, and it's coming by the boatloads. Last year, in the U.S., there were 77 million fentanyl pills seized. 77 million. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's see if I can get this to play.
Fentanyl is widely used as an anesthetic in hospitals. There's a pain patch. There are even fentanyl lollipops. When it's used in a hospital, you have anesthesiologists who can measure it very perfectly. But on the street, it's almost impossible to measure correctly because just 2 grains of rice worth of fentanyl is enough to kill you. Almost all of the ingredients used to make fentanyl are made in China. The ingredients are called precursors, and they're sent over on giant cargo ships to Mexico. In Mexico, the cartels finish the fentanyl and they ship it over the border into the U.S. In the 2000s, it started showing up on the streets in the U.S., but it wasn't really until the last 5 or 6 years that it started causing so many deaths.
Fentanyl is now the deadliest drug in the U.S., according to a new study. Heroin topped the list for the previous 4 years.
Stunning new revelations tonight of the death of music superstar Prince. Authorities revealed today that Prince might not have even been aware he was taking the extremely powerful drug fentanyl that killed him.
It went from basically the DEA was barely aware of it at all to it was killing more people than any drug in American history. Fentanyl is a strange drug because most people don't actually want it. A huge percentage of people dying from fentanyl never even realized they were taking fentanyl in the first place. Fentanyl is used as a cutting agent, because it's so cheap. And so drug dealers and distributors use fentanyl to punch up heroin and other drugs, because heroin is pretty expensive to grow. You know, you need a field, you need a lot of space, water, and time, whereas fentanyl can be made really cheaply and quickly in a lab. And so there's a strong profit incentive for the Mexican cartels to get out of the heroin business and to get into the fentanyl business. People who have substance abuse disorder might have, been getting by in the streets for years or even decades, but now fentanyl has really changed the whole game, and drugs that they never imagined would have fentanyl before now all of a sudden have fentanyl. Not only is fentanyl being cut into heroin, it's being cut into meth, into coke. The worst part right now is that fentanyl is being cut into fake prescription pills. So I always tell people, any pill, any powder that you buy in the street could have fentanyl in it. In terms of young people who might be taking drugs at a party, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's a bad time to be a young person. Nowadays, all the cocaine, all these pills, they could potentially have fentanyl in them. And so the days of kind of just like indiscriminately taking drugs with your friends are probably over.
Okay, what he does such an elegant job of showing us how it's come about, right, and what we're facing. In the Southeast, in this region, our HIDTA covers Georgia and the Carolinas. We do a threat assessment each year on the drugs making the most impact in our area. Methamphetamine has been and continues to be the biggest drug threat in the Southeast, followed by cocaine now, which has risen. But the most impactful drug in the Southeast now is fentanyl, because it's killing so many people indiscriminately. We have, I told you, how many pills were seized last year? 77 million. 7 out of every 10 of those has a lethal dose of fentanyl in it. 38 years I've been doing this, and I've looked at Percocets, I've looked at any type of Adderall that many of our, unfortunately, college students use. I can't tell the difference between a fake Adderall, a fake Percocet, in a real prescribed medicine. You can't tell. The cartels have done a phenomenal job pressing tablets and pills that look just like what you'd get at the pharmacy. Again, well-intended drugs and used properly, okay, but unfortunately, the nefarious folks in Mexico stamp these pills with a small amount of fentanyl. And I'm going to show you why, because people want to know, and some of you have seen this video. I think this video does the best job of showing everybody in here why you're playing Russian roulette every time you take a pill. You don't know where it came from. Even if you knew where it came from, if it didn't come out of a pharmacy, this potentially happened.
I'm going to show you a sample of a mixture of approximately 1 part of what would be a representation of fentanyl to about 100 parts of a cutting agent. This is a typical mixture that most drug traffickers kind of aim for when they're mixing fentanyl versus cutting agent. For the representation purpose, I'm just going to be using colored sugar, the blue color here, and then just white sugar to represent the cutting compound. So first off, I'm going to put in a small amount of what would represent to be the fentanyl, so about approximately 1 part. I'll put that in a mixing device here, just like a magic bullet. These are common things that are used by drug traffickers all the time. And then I'm going to add in about 100 parts of what would represent a cutting agent. And again, just using sugar here for the purpose of the demo. And we're just going to mix this up. So now if you can see, if you look closely here, there's certain areas like this entire white patch here has virtually none of the blue coloring sugar to represent the fentanyl, but certain areas have higher concentrations, such as this area here. This could be a hotspot. This could all be a deadly area within that compound of a over-concentrated or a highly concentrated area. Certain areas would absolutely be lethal dose.
I think that video does a great job of showing us how these accidental poisonings are happening. They're not accidental. They're unfortunately, these aren't chemists in a lab making these pills. I've said this before, and sometimes gets me in trouble. It's some idiot in a garage blending this together. It doesn't care if your loved one takes it or not, because they know that if they can get it in their hands, there's a strong chance that people will be addicted, become addicted, and they'll just keep selling. So they're basically making a great living on, I used to say on the backs of addiction, but they're making a great living on the backs of addiction, even murder. Again, if you look, let me talk about a lethal dose. That's a lethal dose. As you can tell, that's not a whole lot. And we went back to that diagram that says 7 out of every 10. That's all it takes. Overdose deaths in Georgia for adolescents. You see now that fentanyl's in the mix, it's up over 800% in 2021. That's the latest they had on this. And again, fentanyl's been a game changer, but unfortunately, the next big threat, xylazine. Yeah, also AKA tranq. Some of you kids may have heard it called tranq. It's a tranquilizer. They use it on animals, large animals. I use this example in Charleston, South Carolina. In a 3-month time period, 100% of their overdose deaths had xylazine in it. And remember I said earlier that unfortunately some of these people, long-term users, are building up a tolerance to fentanyl. So the xylazine gets the high that they were missing. There's cases now in the U.S. where people are taking 20 to 30 pills a day. And if they don't have, if they're not getting the satisfaction they need, they're seeking out pills with fentanyl. We used to think that they'd try to stay away from buying pills with fentanyl, but now they are attracted to it. We've seen time and time again in our investigative agencies that are realizing that people are going back to the source where, for example, there's a house in Wilmington, North Carolina. The agency was watching. They saw an ambulance show up, carried a person out, overdose. They saw another ambulance come in. They go in, and there was 3 people that had overdosed in that house. They all passed, unfortunately, and all of them were seeking that high. They thought that they were tolerant and it wouldn't kill them. So it's real. But xylazine has been a game changer for even what we're facing now. And understand that if there's, we average about 75 to 80% of overdose deaths involve fentanyl or xylazine now. Some of the things they use it for is a horse tranquilizer. It's not an opioid, so unfortunately Narcan doesn't work if xylazine's in it. Narcan will reverse the fentanyl, but it won't if xylazine's mixed. You know, since this campaign, really with a lot of awareness, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of Narcan dispensers sold and distributed throughout the country. And I often thought, if we lose 300 Americans today from a drug overdose, how many were saved because of Narcan? I mean, Narcan works, we know, until now we see xylazine. And myself and 2 other guys from HIDA were sitting in a restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was kind of with our wives. I was sitting at a bar table looking back towards the patrons, and I saw this guy walking through the crowd. I said, man, he's hammered, he's drunk. And then I saw his eyes roll up in his head, and he hit the deck. I almost caught him, but I wasn't fast enough. And I immediately started asking for Narcan. They didn't have any in the restaurant. I was talking to his girlfriend. What have you taken? We've just smoked a little weed. That's typical of what somebody will say. They don't want to admit that they'd probably taken something else. But anyway, thank God there was a guy there, bless his heart. He was in this place to ask his girlfriend to marry him from Boston, Massachusetts. He was an EMT, and he jumped off his stool and ran over and life-saving procedures, kept this guy alive till the ambulance got there. And she said yes, by the way. We asked afterwards. Who couldn't say yes to that guy, right? He's a hero. But anyway, where we're seeing is xylazine. It is here in Georgia, and actually this is a little bit older slide, right, Armando? And so now it's even creeped into more, but almost all the counties where heavily populated, you're seeing xylazine. We feel like that number, unfortunately, is going to go up. And look at the number of deaths, the percentage of deaths in 2022. Once xylazine popped in, it's up over 1,100%. It's really frightening. So we've said a lot tonight to really kind of pique your interest. If you go to talknowga.com, and I don't have the QR code or the slide for it, but it's pretty easy. Talknowga.com. There's a ton of resources on there for people that are struggling, for people that have family members that may be struggling. There's educational tools for our young folks to look at. Encourage your people to go to it. We need all hands on deck. Listen, we are, and Mr. Buchanan talked to you, we all about putting people in jail and taking this crud off the street. That's what law enforcement does. But we're also parents, we're also neighbors and friends, and we have a desire to save lives, one at a time. Prevention works. Talk to your kids. No internet site is safe. It's okay. My kids, bless their heart, I violated every right they had. I searched everything they had without a warrant. I gave them access to my computer, but I had access to their computer. It's okay. I don't care if they're on if they're in your house, check their rooms out. Talk to them, because the last thing you need is a terrible phone call because maybe your child or loved one made a mistake, right? Now, I've got a card here, and we're going to come back up in a minute and do questions. But if you have your phone, take a picture of this card. Armando Roche right here. He's one of our drug intelligence officers. He spoke probably to a number of your schools. He's in the community. He lives in Johns Creek, a little bit out of Sandy Springs, but that's right. But he's very, and if he can't avail himself, we have a staff of people, Andy Diamond here. We'll come out and talk to your folks. That's how important it is to us. And there's one more slide here I'm going to put up for before I make the next introduction. This slide is a QR code for naloxone, Narcan. I'm going to put it this way. If you have guests in your house, you need Narcan. Put it in your house. Put it in your vehicle. Because there was a really bad feeling in my gut when that guy fell down in that restaurant in Charleston. I didn't have Narcan on me. And you know, I'm thank God that there was that guy there that knew what to do. And I've been doing this a long time. But now I have it in every car and I have it in my house. If you can't get it free from here, it's $48 for two canisters. Because you or your family might make a bad mistake, but maybe a friend comes over with their kids and makes a bad mistake. Next up, I know we have a very special, I met her tonight, and she has a very special message. Angela King, would you come up and... Angela has a much more powerful presentation because this one's near and dear. It's her heart, and you're going to hear it. And just like Johnny Carson. Angela, thank you for being here tonight. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy Springs government, police force, DEA agent, representative, Mr. Buchanan, all those that have come tonight and who are listening at home. And real special mention to my husband who couldn't be here tonight, Mike. He is traveling for work. But on behalf of Mike, for myself, our beautiful children, Pano, Jack, who's with us, always in our hearts, Jamie, Lucas, Sophia, and Anna Kate, we thank you. This is very important. Jack was one of the most amazing people you'd ever meet. He had a heart of gold. He lived life to the fullest. He cared about everyone. He was so handsome. He was very athletic, played all sports, was captain of his lacrosse football team, very smart, made straight A's, loved his friends, loved his family, loved going to football games at Georgia, was a junior at Georgia, doing so well, had so much going for him, was just the pledge trainer at his fraternity this year. An amazing son, brother, and friend. This is all we have left to Jack. What does this mean? No more birthdays, no more Thanksgivings, no more Christmases, no more beach trips, no more fun times with his friends, no more spending time with family, going to football games that he loved to do, no graduating from college, no getting married, no chance of being a father. The night before Thanksgiving in Atlanta, all the college kids come home, and it's a big night to go out. Go out and have fun with your friends. That night, I've always hated that night. And of course, we have all of on our phones, we track the kids. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night and saw everybody's home, everybody's safe. Went back to sleep and woke up Thanksgiving morning looking forward to a great time of thanks, being with family. We were all home, but Jack spent the night out. And Mike, my husband, started calling Jack, didn't answer. We saw where he was. He was at a friend's house, right around the corner from us. Jack didn't answer, so Mike went over to the house. When he got there, they were still asleep, and he tried to wake Jack up. But Jack didn't wake up. His fingernails were blue. He was already gone. Mike called me and told me to come over, screaming. I rushed over, and when I got there, the EMT were there working on him. Mike tried for 30 minutes, desperately, to try to save him. When I arrived, the police, EMT were there. They worked on him, and our children came over. It was the most traumatizing, horrific day of our lives. The screams, the wails, of our children and what they went through should not be experienced by anyone. No parent should ever have to go through that. No child should ever have to go through that. Seeing the coroner show up, having us all put in a room where we thought we all were. 2 of our children were not in the room, unfortunately. They were in the garage, and they saw Jack being taken out. They were traumatized, terrified. We're hurting. We're grieving. But we have to turn our pain into a purpose. Saying don't do drugs isn't working. Jack knew not to do drugs. We have to start communicating. We have to start making this real. These kids are playing Russian roulette. They go out and party and have fun, have some drinks and think, oh, let's just take some pills, it's fine. But as we've just heard with all these statistics and what's happening, that's not possible anymore. I hope everybody does get Narcan. We've given it to our children. We have it at our home. Unfortunately, this is the world that we live in right now. We have to be prepared. I'm committed not only to speak, but to take action. We have to end this terrible epidemic that we're faced with. I will be talking with legislators to get legislation passed. I'll do whatever I can. Nobody should ever experience what we've gone through. Life is so short. We have to live each day to the fullest. Love your children. Talk to them. Be the best version of you that you can be. And for the children out there listening, it's not worth it to put your parents, your family, and your friends through this. So please make the right choices and make good decisions. I hope that I've reached just one person tonight, saved one life. If I've done that, then I'm doing what's right for Jack and honoring him. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's drop the mic time, right? Since we've been in here 40 minutes, 8 Americans have died of a drug overdose. Let that sink in. We're comfortable sitting in padded chairs. This drug does not discriminate. I don't care where you sit, where you live, where you line up politically, it's killing people indiscriminately. Angela's message is real. Again, you can't, let's give her another hand. Where'd she go? I only wish I got to know Jack. He sounds like a great guy. Did he play quarterback?
He did.
Yeah, quarterback. I'd like to tackle him. Anyway, and we're going to open it up for questions. We've got area experts. Angela's agreed to stay. I know Mr. Buchanan's here. Listen, this is your time. We wanted to leave a lot of time for questions and answers. And I'll tell you this, if we don't know the answer, we'll get it to you. We need a phone number. So I don't know, Mr. Buchanan, if you want to come up. We can't really move this mic, but and Armando Roche, our area expert. So I guess we got the lights. Anybody got questions? Fire away.
How soon after someone takes whatever deadly drug we talked about
We have any EMTs in the house? Paramedics? The question was, how long do we have to survive, save them, right? You want to use it as fast as you can. I don't know. Anybody have an answer to that? I know that when I've seen it used, it was clear an overdose happening, and the moment they hit them, they woke up out of it. Typically pretty violent, too. Don't we have any EMTs in here? There you go.
I'm not an EMT, but I'm an addiction psychiatrist. My name is Dr. Karen Drexler. I'm at Emory. And I would say think about someone who's underwater and can't breathe, because that's what happens, is the fentanyl stops your drive to breathe. So how long can you go without oxygen? It's a matter of a couple of minutes. That's how long you have. And the other thing that I would like to also say, I agree with our officers that naloxone can reverse fentanyl, but it also is fairly short-acting. So if you have naloxone on you and someone overdoses and passes out and you administer the naloxone and they wake up, you still have a short window to get them to medical attention. Because yes, the fentanyl could last longer than the naloxone and they could go back into overdose.
So the kids really who are at a party are the ones that need to know how to administer Narcan to their friends, not us. You know, when you get home. It's the young people who need to be trained how to administer the Narcan to their friends. Am I right? Because, but I'm saying that's who.
Absolutely.
We need to show the kids how to use it, not us.
But I loved your example. You're in a restaurant. We just came from a restaurant tonight. It could happen anywhere. So I think it's very helpful if all of us are prepared and know how to administer it. It's not hard to administer.
I think it's safe to say, too, and I didn't hear, was she a doctor? Okay, well, that's even, I thought she slept at Holiday Inn Select. You can't, if somebody's having a heart attack or some other medical event and they're hit with Narcan, it's not going to hurt them, from what I'm told. So if you're in doubt, it's okay to administer it. And with the Good Samaritan, yeah, you're covered. Do it. Don't worry about liability. And I think it's a great idea to get in the schools. And if you could, anybody in the education department wants to work at that grant, I'll help you write it. There's back there? Yeah.
I was just curious, obviously by the slides, that the numbers are going up and it seems like that this drug is readily available. Can you talk about kind of the numbers or statistics of people that are being caught, these dealers that are, that are distributing, especially in our area?
So, Mr. Buchanan?
Tell them about the trucks that are coming through that you just told me.
Well, so I was last week. I was at the Capitol in Washington, and this has everybody's ear. Okay, so whether you're, blue, red, it doesn't matter. We were in their office talking about it. There's 225,000 passenger vehicles cross the border every day. 2% of them are searched. Commercial vehicles, only 7% of the commercial vehicles are searched. They have the technology, so that's something that this administration is doing, trying to beef up X-ray stuff at the border. I'll let Mr. Buchanan talk about what's going on investigation-wise, because he sees it every day.
Thanks for the question, and that is a question that raises some good points. My office, the U.S. Attorney's Office here, HIDA program, DEA, has always been committed to prosecuting drug traffickers. You can watch the evolution of it from speedboats in Miami, coming up to Florida, to people who were making methamphetamine locally, and now this mass sort of production of it. It has led to just a proliferation of the amount of drugs that are out. And so we have increased our focus on it to a high level that sort of matches the threat. But the point of why we're here tonight, and I've had the opportunity to visit with some other parents of children who have died from fentanyl, and other poisonings, and it's such an awful, awful experience for them. And so we are working, in addition to prosecuting it, and I mentioned earlier, prosecuting it from precursors in China, the cartels in Mexico, the network that moved it up and into the United States. We're working our dead level best at that. But what we also want to do is raise awareness on the other end of it, to make certain that parents know what it looks like with their children, to make certain that children and college students, as they're out, understand what it looks like with them. Because we, as a prosecutor, we are good at prosecuting cases, but we are happy to have less of it to do. And so would we rather prosecute a good case or have a conversation that prompts someone to prevent an overdose? We'd rather do the latter. And so we will keep at it from a prosecutorial standpoint. We'll continue to develop sources. We'll continue to chase those cartels all over. But what we want you to do is to join us in that effort by raising your awareness, by having awkward conversations about social media, phone use, friends, partying. There was a time when people could experiment. That time is over. I appreciate Ms. King's discussion, and I appreciate her son's example, because we've long gone, and I mentioned having those conversations with those parents who'd lost children as well. This isn't always the story where someone was addicted and it was a long struggle and we saw it years out and we worked at it. These deaths can be instant. And so that's the message that has to change. And so you can rest assured that my office, the Department of Justice, DEA, HIDA, FBI, HSI, all federal agencies are all in, state agencies too, GBI as well, are all in on getting after the traffickers. But we want to make certain that on the opposite end of that, those who would be the victims of it and those who are adjacent to those victims are aware of the threat as well.
Thank you. We have billboards throughout Georgia, and just recently we got a feedback from those billboards. You may have seen them. One pill can kill, and it's 2 pills, and you can't tell which one is the deadly prescription drug or fake prescription drug. And on those websites, people will call into that Talk Now GA. We have them in the Carolinas as well. The majority of the calls and feedback we're getting from the signs are parents that don't know, they've heard of fentanyl but don't know anything about it. So this is commendable that you guys are here. You got a great police department that's doing phenomenal things in the city to take this junk off the street. But like Mr. Buchanan said, man, the days of experimenting are over. It's done. You can't go and have a yes, ma'am.
So I have a question. I live in Sandy Springs, and thank you for the presentation. So locally, where are we seeing this? I mean, you're seeing people dying, but like, is it in the high schools? Is it at bars in Buckhead? Like, where are the kids, the college kids, getting this?
Short answer is everywhere. We are working with the Department of Public Health to do sort of an analysis to understand where across our district it's really prevalent. But it is not, I appreciate the opportunity to say this. One, there's not a trajectory of person that winds up in that cycle, right? Two, there's not a geographic area that it's limited to. We can talk about students at the University of Georgia. We can talk about people on the west side of Atlanta. We can talk about people in far north, near the Tennessee and North Carolina borders, and we can talk about people out in east going toward Augusta. And so there's not I want to sort of dispel the idea that if you stay away from a certain place, you will avoid fentanyl. You won't. Like you can't say, well, if you just don't go to Buckhead, it won't happen to you. And likewise, you can't say if you just don't go to West Atlanta, it won't happen to you. We need to be mindful wherever, and that leads me to another point. And that's the drugs don't have to be bought in a shady back alley. Dan's right. We're seeing this on the internet. We're seeing it on social media. We are running into great difficulty with social media companies and their end-to-end encryption that doesn't allow us to really pursue it. And so it's everywhere where a cell phone can be. And so that's the reach of it, that's the danger of it, and that's why it's really difficult to say geographically you can avoid it.
I would just like to add, you're absolutely correct. I just want to add that every cartel is present, unfortunately, and they have cells operating in Georgia, all of them. There's 2 or 3 that are predominant, maybe even one that's really taken over, but they're operating in Georgia, all the cartels are. So there is no back alley purchase. This is everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Oh, I wanted to just touch on our overdose mapping system, ODMAP. It's a free application that law enforcement participates in, and it's basically a real-time spike alert for areas that may see a threshold maxed out for overdoses in a 24-hour period. So it's HIDA initiative. It's free to all law enforcement. Sandy Springs participated. They've been participating since its inception, I think 7 years ago. And it's a mechanism for us to alert everybody who needs to be alerted that there's an area, geographic area, a county, city that's experiencing unusual deaths or overdoses in a 24-hour period. So it's now connected, it's interfaced with fire and EMS, and fire and EMS by law, Georgia law, they have to report within 24 hours any overdoses. At first it wasn't interlinked, it's interlinked now, so now we're getting real-time information of overdoses in a 24-hour period. Just occurred in Gwinnett County, January 1 to January 29, we had 22 deaths every day, an overdose death in Gwinnett County. So ODMAP spike alert alerted us, and we came together and tried to identify what was going on. These were people from teenagers to a 62-year-old that died. Every single day someone died in January. Initially it was 50%, the medical examiners part of this group, 50% had fentanyl involved in the death. I immediately said, check everybody because I'm telling you it's 100, and it was 100. All 21 had died of fentanyl.
It's important to remember that ODMAP, when we see a spike, it does notify law enforcement, but it also notifies public health and the local hospitals that we're seeing a spike, particularly in North Georgia. We saw a spike in southern part of Tennessee. A bunch of people were dropping dead. We got the alert, and it allowed us to talk to our public health up on the border and the hospitals to, hey, be ready because it's coming. And it was a certain color pill that they were distributing up in that area. It was killing people. So I think there's another question over here.
It's the amnesty law of Georgia. You won't be prosecuted. You have to save that friend. Just save it. Don't worry about anything else and repercussions from law enforcement. Save your friend. Make the call. Wait. Help them. Forget everything else. Just get that person some help immediately. Don't be afraid of being in trouble. You won't be. You're actually going to be a hero.
Can I build on what you're saying right there. First off, Angela, thank you. We love you, and we're all share for your fight, so thank you. But along those lines, as a parent, as a friend, as a gentleman in a bar, how do you know, is there a red flag that says this person is hammered or this person is on a pill? What are the signs that tell us now's the time to Narcan this kid? Because they come home at 3 in the morning and go to bed. How do we know?
I can only speak, again, I'm not I've just seen a couple of them, so I'm not like, an expert in this. But when they're not acting right, it's time to act. And we know what our children are like. They may come home late at night from college and they're tired. It's okay to get up and talk to them, see what they're about, because most of the time, these folks will go to bed and they don't wake up. And that's what I think. I don't know anything about those guys at the Kansas City party that went out on the back porch and froze to death. But I would venture to say they took something, it made them extremely hot, they went outside, and they died from an overdose before they froze to death. I mean, I'm not a lawyer or a judge, so I can make assumptions, but I'm sure that's what happened. I think we're kind of getting wrapped up. Anybody else? Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, I have an answer for signs of opioid overdose. Again, I'm Karen Drexler. I'm an addiction psychiatrist. I work at Emory. So signs of opioid overdose, besides getting sleepy and your breathing slowing down, is your pupils get tiny, pinpoint pupils. If you pass out and your brain doesn't get enough oxygen, so you're not breathing, your pupils can then dilate as part of the process of dying. But when someone's still moving and talking and looking intoxicated, look at their eyes, and if their pupils are small, they've probably got opioids on board, and you need to be worrying about an opioid overdose. Thank you.
My question for you is, so we've got a lot of parents here and we talk to our kids, hopefully a lot. My question to you is, what's being done to reach kids in high school? Are there any programs where you're doing similar type talks in all the high schools to make them aware?
I'm glad you asked. All right, so let me be blunt. I'm not a politician. The Department of Education has really shut down a lot of our presentations in school. My wife's a retired teacher. When I was the head of the DEA office in Dallas, her school on Red Ribbon Week, we flew in helicopters. She got everything. Slowly but surely, the principal stopped that because they didn't want the perception that they had a drug problem in that school. And we faced that ever since. And that was in 2000, probably 12 it started. So we have to get, let me tell you, you're wrong. We need to be in the elementary and middle schools. We need to give them a reason and an alternative to something other than taking a pill that will kill them. High schools, sometimes, God bless them, it's too late. And you know, your best source of info is talk to these young guys. See what they've seen and heard about on the internet or in college or at the high school level. We need to be in the elementary and the junior highs. There's phenomenal prevention programs out there. We're fighting. I met this week with a lady from South Carolina. She's fighting the South Carolina Department of Education because the teachers are stressed to the max. They got to teach these curriculums. They're mandated to teach a certain curriculum. They don't have time. They have a little bit of time for bullying, a little bit of time for drinking, all the things that are really important. But it's not really a priority in the Department of Education. It should be. So you're exactly right. So parents can make that demand.
Hey, I got a quick question. I'm a registered nurse if anybody has a question. I'm not a drug specialist, but I'm making it help. We hear a lot about kids getting drugs off Snapchat and that kind of thing, right? We hear about it looking like a Skittle, being an Adderall, or someone says, do you have something to help me sleep? And they can't tell the difference, right? So on Snapchat, since this goes away, how is it marketed? Is it where these kids can say, hey, I'll meet you down the street and I'll grab a pack of whatever? Do they know what they're getting? How is it marketed? How would we have that conversation with our kids?
Well, they could very well be ordering Percocet. What they think is Percocet or Adderall.
That.
Well, I don't know.
One thing is they shouldn't put in.
Right.
I understand what I'm getting off
I
Snapchat.
think I want to understand it because I know someone whose kid got it off Snapchat, and it was focused as a candy.
Sure. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want Skittles, you should go to the store and buy Skittles.
Right.
If you're having problems sleeping, you should talk to your parents about that and talk to the doctor about getting a prescription or Adderall.
But do y'all see a lot of that?
We just, this secondary drug market is just too dangerous. So every pill, every medication needs to come from a medical provider. Right. And neither you nor I or anyone else is going to be able to sort of figure it out kind of in that secondary space. And so we just have to push forward to that bit of you can't take it unless it's come from a medical provider.
And lastly, so we have some culpability as parents too, because I said this a long time ago, people thought I was crazy. There's a cartel lurking in every medicine cabinet in this country. If you have stuff in your cabinet that was prescribed to you because you had a surgery or some type of procedure, you need to dispose of that. And there's the take-back days, the DEA and most of the federal and state and local offices open. Take your drugs and get rid of them because people will go through, they'll come through your cabinets. So that's free and commercial, but it's true. I just got through knee surgery 2.5 weeks ago. I refused pain medicine because I'm just scared to death of it, but not that I'm a tough guy, but I didn't want that stuff in my house. Yes, ma'am? I'm sorry.
A couple of quick comments. I'm with the city of Sandy Springs. I'm a city councilman, and just so you know, all of our policemen, all of our firemen have Narcan with them, and they wind up using or administering Narcan several times a month minimum, and some months it's even more than that. So we, as far as when it happens, call 911. We have the resources to try to save somebody. That's really not, as you're listening to this, that's not the solution. The solution is to keep people from taking these drugs. I invited the superintendent of Fulton County Schools. I don't think he made it tonight, but I'm going to keep talking to him. Every time you all go to a PTA meeting, I suggest during the Q&A session, you bring it up and ask if they can have a session with these gentlemen. Will come anytime you want to come talk to your school or talk to your class. So don't be afraid to bring it up. And if we talk about this enough to the schools, hopefully they'll begin to react to that, because you're their constituents and you have to keep talking to them. And I'll keep talking at my level, you keep talking at the school level, and maybe we can get this education further down. And then finally, the city sponsored this. We're going to probably do another one in the fall. We'll facilitate anything that helps spread this word. Just let any of us know. This is the start of what I hope will be a continued effort to continue carrying this message. And Ms. King, thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry you
Thank you, John. Thank you. And I'm sorry we had to be here, right? And there was one more question, and then we're going to be around afterwards, so feel free to come up to us. But we're going to close it out with, well, we got 2 more questions. But we'll go with you.
So we know a lot about counterfeit pills, and we know a lot about what kids are getting on Snapchat, places like that, and you cannot tell the difference from a real pill from a pharmacy from a counterfeit pill. How much are you seeing marijuana laced with fentanyl, and how much where are those kind of things traveling? What circles are they traveling in, and how is that stuff happening out on the street?
Great. It's a great question. So I am adamantly opposed to the legalization and use of marijuana. So let me be clear. And what we found, this is what drives me nuts. I was at the Capitol last week, as I mentioned. You know, there's a bill out there to prohibit the sale of mentholated cigarettes and flavored cigars, but yet they're talking about legalizing marijuana. We got something wrong here. The Cowboys are chasing Indians or something. But to answer your question, there's 2 thoughts on marijuana laced with fentanyl. One of which I don't subscribe to. One of which says that once it hits a certain heat point, it's heated, that it loses its toxicity. But there's also, kids are vaping THC and marijuana. The vaping, they believe, will still cause an overdose if it's laced with fentanyl. So here's the deal. Everything, Mr. Buchanan eloquently said it, there's no more experiment. Whether it's weed, go out and go for a run, get your endomorphs going. There's got to be an alternative. So the science is still out on that. but we know that vaping is not a safe form, and we're seeing it more and more. I mean, tons of kids are vaping now, and I think you're playing a little bit of a Russian roulette when you smoke marijuana if it could be laced with fentanyl. I don't think anybody's tried it, but I think GBI is reporting this happened 3 times in North Georgia, and that was smokable marijuana. One more, and then we gotta go.
Well, that was my main question, was is it finding its way other than in pills? So it is being used to lace marijuana. But the second question is, if this is I hate reality of kids doing drugs, is there some little chemical test that you can do to tell if something has fentanyl in it? It seems
Yes.
like that might be the next step for figuring out if you're going to do a drug, can you tell if it's safe?
Well, I mean, I don't subscribe to that, but what I would say that there are
I don't either, just for the record.
Yeah, there are test strips that some harm reduction places hand out for people to test their drugs. I feel like when my thought behind that is, yeah, I think there are some test strips, but what if that test strip doesn't work and you just told that person it's okay to use and they die? Are you complicit in a homicide? I mean, I think so. So I think that the real reality is we need to change that. It's not a reality. These guys got a lot more alternatives than using what they might find at a party or a pill. So let me finish with this. We heard her story. I mean, I hope she goes with us wherever we go, because Angela is my new hero, and I know she's got to kind of close us out tonight. We're going to be around, but thank you for being here from us. Chief, thanks for having us. City of Sandy Springs, thanks for having us. And I did go to Roswell High School, so if my math was off on some of that thing, my educator's there. But thank you for having us. And Angela, God bless you, and thank you all for being here.
I did want to mention, drugs are out there. They're everywhere. They're on the college campuses, right in front of your face. We can talk about this all we want, but we have to take action. I'm willing to tell Jack's story if it will help anybody, if it will shake somebody out of their, thinking, oh, it'll never happen to me. Oh, we're just having a good time. It's happening with boys and with girls doing drugs. So we have to bring awareness to this. It's only been, less than 3 months. People forget. They're going to forget Jack. Some already have and are back to partying, thinking, oh, it'll never happen to me. It's going to happen. It's going to happen again, unfortunately. So if I can be of any help to anybody, I'll speak at churches, I'll speak wherever I can, whatever I need to do to get the word out is that important. And thank you all for being here. This is so informative. Thank you for your time. We have to make a change. This is not the world that we deserve to live in. Our children deserve better. So thank you very much. I really appreciate all y'all for being here.